York Mayor Eric Adams is lashing out at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. He says the charges against him are all because he spoke out against the administration's immigration policies. That said, it's not looking good for the mayor. His Honor could face an expanded indictment with additional defendants from his circle being charged, say prosecutors Hagen Scotton on Wednesday. Now, people heckled Adams Wednesday as he returned to a Manhattan federal court in the case accusing him of taking bribes and also illegal campaign contributions. Scotton told the judge, Dale Ho, the team will likely file a superseding indictment that means more defendants or charges will be tacked onto the original indictment. Adams denied any wrongdoing, pleading not guilty to conspiracy, wire fraud, and bribery charges in his historic arraignment last Friday.
Meanwhile, Jumaane Williams, the person next in line to become mayor if Adams resigns, is also caught up in the scandal. According to the Wall Street Journal, Williams accepted political contributions from a donor named in Adams' indictment. The donor, Uzbek-American construction contractor Tolib Mansurov, gave $5,000 to Williams' re-election bid. The Brooklyn-based Mansurov allegedly had two of his employees donate to Jumaane Williams. Mansurov allegedly reimbursed his employees for making campaign contributions to Adams and Williams. This would be illegal. Surprise, surprise. The indictment reveals he also poured $10,000 to Williams' 2022 gubernatorial run, which he lost to Governor Kathy Hochul.
The documents also show Adams' office helped Mansurov plan events celebrating his Uzbek heritage. The prosecution says he got that help from Adams to resolve a stop work order that the city buildings department had imposed on one of Mansurov's building projects. Rising reached out to Williams' office and have not heard back. So, it is looking bad, not just for Eric Adams, but for his immediate successor is also involved in this corruption. Historic day.
Indeed, yeah. It seems like it's just a steady drip, drip, drip of new allegations against Mayor Adams. And there have been some people on the right, we talked about this last week, who have been saying, well, the timing is interesting because he criticizes the Biden administration's immigration policy and says that he needs more resources because of the crisis that's come to New York City, and then he gets indicted. But the allegations go back as far as, I believe, 2014.
Yeah, and they put the wheels in motion on this.
They were
thing.
investigating, I think, well before he made any comments about the migration crisis, as much as I agree with him in his criticism of the Biden administration.
That's not a cover for just, like, taking bribes.
Exactly. He also was making that claim because there's this dynamic always between the governor and the mayor and who's in charge of what. And the one thing is that both of them were criticizing the Biden administration because they didn't have resources, which was convenient. And he's a little bit more conservative. He was a former Republican. He was a police lieutenant, and his whole campaign was running on making the city safer after a peak of incidents that occurred during the pandemic and afterwards. I think what's fascinating about this is, you're right, this has been under investigation for a long time. There is a campaign finance system in New York City, a matching fund system. It's supposed to level the playing field. We've talked about this in the past. But the rules are very strict because if you're going to receive money from the city, which is today, if you raise $250 or less from a New York resident, you are entitled to get $8 from the city if you reach a certain amount. So to show that, you've got movement support, small dollar support. And there's all these people who do these schemes, and they always get in trouble. But what first happens is the CFB, the Campaign Finance Board that oversees it, they do an investigation, and if it starts to escalate, they bring in other authorities which quietly investigate. So what I find fascinating about this with Eric Adams, it's been going on for a while. You're correct. Years. I mean, he was the Brooklyn borough president before he was mayor, and that's when they probably started to look into this. But with the other donation, I find really interesting is it's a $5,000 donation. When Jumaane Williams received matching funds, there are limits. You can't receive $5,000 in donations, just in general. If you choose to opt into the matching fund system, you can't take big money. That's the exchange. Mayor Bloomberg decided not to do matching funds because he was rich and he wanted to self-fund. Right. So you have that choice. You either go big money or you go small money and you get this amazing system. So a $5,000 donation is definitely against the rules. But in this situation with Eric Adams and Jumaane Williams, it's bizarre that this donor had given money to other folks to give donations. You can't just figure that out online. You can't get that in a disclosure. That means somebody's been investigating. That means that the feds are involved in looking to who these donors were and how they gave the money. I mean, anytime that comes up in any straw donation scheme, it's always because the feds are involved.
Yeah, I'm a little sympathetic to the reality that, campaign finance law is confusing, and if the authorities look hard enough at probably any political figure, they can find something not done properly. But in this case, him or his surrogates are responding to messages from foreign powers saying, here's how we will make it look like this was legit with the plane flights. Well, you can't just charge us an amount that would make sense for a plane flight. That shows willful participation in this scheme for small amounts of money over and over and over again, but that does not make it not serious.
And just a note, so that is a separate thing from the campaign finance situation. The campaign finance board, you actually have to hire, when you're running for office, people who specialize in this. And it is really complicated. You've got to have receipts. I mean, they'll mark you for anything. You're not going to go into an investigation if you don't have a receipt for something, but you'll probably have to pay a fine or, pay back the city a little bit amount of money. I mean, every candidate has to go through their audit, and usually they have to pay a little bit of money back because there's some messiness in a campaign. But with that situation with Turkey, that's foreign influence. And there are 4 other countries involved in that. So suddenly you go from having a bribery scheme to a foreign influence scheme, and you're in Menendez territory. You're in a completely different type of investigation. And, it's embarrassing for the city because what they wanted was to have their building, Turkey wanted this building, their consulate across from the UN, built, and they were violating security, all sorts of violations, and the fire department wouldn't approve it, which is also a problem with Turkey, because if you remember that huge earthquake that happened a couple years ago, a lot of those buildings fell because Turkey didn't have safety precautions for their buildings, and they were violating code. So they clearly don't care about building codes, and they'll do whatever it takes to, there's 1 million buildings in New York City. It's not that hard to follow through with code.
I don't see as many conservatives defending Eric Adams as maybe there was a flurry of that a week or so ago. I wonder if the right has maybe come to its senses and is backing off this one a little bit.
I don't know why he would be their hero anyway, because when it came to his criticisms of the migrant crisis, it was, give me more money, not change your policy,
right,
which is what conservatives would actually want to see if they wanted border security. And then on everything else, he's a liberal. He hasn't really done much to address crime, which obviously conservatives shouldn't be happy about. So making him their ally is bizarre to me, but I also feel like Eric Adams is the worst of both worlds when it comes to a corrupt public official. There's 2 routes you can go where you kind of get a little bit of respect, right? So you can go
I love that.
You can go the Menendez, George Santos route, where you're just totally unapologetic. You're using your campaign funds to buy Botox.
You're a character.
You've got gold bars in your safe. Make it interesting, be funny,
Yes.
Whatever. Good movie ideas, right, from these 2 individuals. Or you can be a Mayor Daley or one of these Democrat power mayors where, you give contracts to your friends occasionally and you get a kickback, but the city is better overall and you have crime under control and things are running on time and people are okay, we can deal with a little bit of mob ties so long as the city is organized. Mayor Eric Adams managed to do neither of those, and so for me, it's totally worthless.
1 more thing, I just remembered that's so great. I love it. You could teach a class in this, how you do corruption, the fun way or the. But yeah. Mayor Adams is a little kooky. He is somebody who's known for being the nightlife mayor. He shows up at this private club in the city, and he schmoozes with people. He says he's a vegan, but then they found meat in his fridge, and he says it was his son's. He got on a...
What?
True story. He's very entertaining. He got on a plane. There's a crypto billionaire named Brock Pierce who lives in Puerto Rico, and every election, right after the election, there's this conference that every New York politician, anybody in politics goes to called Somos. And it's really supposed to be about issues, but of course it's just one giant party and also where people schmooze and negotiate stuff and cut deals. And so he flew on Brock Pierce's, this crypto billionaire's private jet to Puerto Rico. And that hasn't even come up yet. That is also not legal. There are things that just happen in the press publicly. You don't even need to investigate it. It's just not legal. And, and he's given money. And Brock Pierce is also tied to some of those developers in Brooklyn, which is an interesting part because both Jumaane Williams and Eric Adams are from this area of Brooklyn that they had overlapping support, because in New York, everything's neighborhood support and demographics. Do you have this demographic behind you? Are you a Queens politician? Do you have the Queens machine, the Brooklyn machine? So they both came out of the Brooklyn machine. And it'll be interesting to see what else is overlapping, because we were going to have a special election if he steps down, and Jumaane Williams will be the mayor, the sitting mayor, the acting mayor. It's likely he's going to run in the special election, it seems. But there's also people like Andrew Cuomo, Scott Stringer, a former comptroller, the current comptroller, Brad Lander, Zohran Mahdavi is an assembly member, there's Jessica Ramos. There's like 20 names, and there's like 7 leftists, and there's now ranked choice voting. So this is just the beginning. It's going to get wild and nasty.
Wild to think of Andrew Cuomo making another run at authority and leadership in New York. We will certainly be paying close attention to that. Lots more rising to come. Stay tuned.